We'll just have to prove me wrong or prove me right, Alex.
We'll take a look at our opening hands. See, Hobbs on the left here. Mulliganed a 7-lander. There's some contexts where we saw PVDDR keep like a 6-land growth spiral. That's actually quite a bit better than 7 lands, but Hobbs looked at the 7-lander for a while, immediately mulliganed his 6, and is now taking a look at a 5.
I believe this is a 4, actually. He had a couple of really horrendous hands there, I think, when we came in. Pretty sure he has to put 3 back. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. Fine being wrong.
The caption on top says drag 2
Fine.
cards to the
You're
bottom.
Right. You're right. Look, underneath the mulligan button a second ago, it said put 3 cards back, and then once he kept, it told him to only put 2 cards back. So my apologies. As usual, Mr. Overturf, you are correct.
Well, let's not go that far. But our players are underway.
As occasional.
As has been known to happen on occasion. Alex Mitas opening up on a breeding pool. Johnny Hobbs with a Temple of Plenty is going to scry Nissa to the bottom. 5-card hand has 3 lands. 5 drop, not exactly what he's looking for.
Not only that, but 3 lands all enter the battlefield tapped. And against Team of Reclamation, that's not acceptable. You need to be able to put something on the battlefield early, or else if they have Growth Spiral to start, like we're seeing here from Alex Mitas, things are about to go south in a hurry.
Oh yeah, Growth Spiral. Fired out for it away. There's the 4th land on turn 3. No Reclamation, but leaving up an Ether Gust and a Negate. Also, Boon of the Wish Giver. We don't see too much of this one. It cycles for 1, or if you want to spend 6 mana on it, you can draw 4 cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cards where like it kind of functions like an opt or peak, or one of those like 1 mana draw 1 card spells early. But then once you really get the engine revving, you are able to eventually translate it into a draw 4, and that does matter when you're trading a lot of 1-for-1 scenarios. Personally, I'm not the hugest fan of it because it is a sorcery in a deck that wants all instants, but I can understand why Alex would want it.
Hobbs attempted a Growth Spiral. That gets tagged by Mystical Dispute. Now Hobbs has land number 4. Gonna decline to cast Teferi Master of Time.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think he wants to cycle the Shark Typhoon to start applying some pressure, try to hit land 5 for Nissa. Unfortunately for him, not only does Alex have 1 answer with Negate, he actually has 2 answers with Ether Gust. So the 2/2 from Shark Typhoon is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting.
See Hobbs end step, crack these 2 Fabled Passages.
It's a little awkward to have to crack 2 Fabled Passages right before you need to draw more lands, but you got to do what you got to do. It doesn't change the odds that much.
Right. And in a situation where you have a 5-card hand against your opponent's 7, even if you are supposed to be the good go big deck, especially when there's counter spells involved in the matchup, you got to try to get a little bit scrappy, and gets rewarded a little bit as he draws 2 lands after making this shark.
Yeah, one thing I try to stress to people when I'm explaining plays and such is when you're behind, you can't always play around everything. Sometimes you got to just hope that your opponent has missed and hope for the best. You know, like here, if I was Hobbs, because I've mulliganed to 5, because my opponent hasn't really done a whole lot, I probably would have went ahead and just played the Nissa. And I'm not saying that it is correct to do so, but that is generally where I lean, because you are so low on cards. Your opponent has a decent mana advantage on you because of the Growth Spiral, and they haven't really done much of anything. I think that like you have to be scared of a Shark Typhoon, and maybe that's what the attack first was maybe a bait to see if Shark Typhoon was at the ready.
That seems to be the case, as you do see the Nissa deployed post-combat. Now Midas can choose, does he want to gust it first or just go for Negate? He lands on Negate.
Yeah, permanently dealing with it makes sense. If you gust it, they're probably just going to put it on top, and then you're going to have to negate it next turn, which ties up your mana. Now he can save the gust for something a little more impactful later. Perhaps tagging a Wilderness Reclamation on the stack or some such.
So Midas goes and cracks the Fabled Passages of his own, and now the Boon of the Wish Giver. 4 cards, please.
Yeah, that's another absolutely great reason to play the Negate over the the Ether Gust there, because then you just get to untap, cast your draw for it, and play a land, and the shields are mostly down.
And Hobbs tries to capitalize. He deploys a 4/4 Hydroid Krasis, so he has 6 power in the air against an opponent on 14. Mitas has picked up a lot of expansions, no Reclamation just yet. Does have Uro.
Yeah, I don't know if he has enough cards in the graveyard to actually double Euro this turn, though. Maybe looking to Euro and look for a Wilderness Reclamation or something like that. May want to Growth Spiral before Euroing.
I believe he does have enough cards to escape. It's just because he has 2 passages, Boon, Growth Spiral, Mystical Dispute, and a Gate.
Sure. Maybe just trying to figure out the correct sequence. Maybe Growth Spiraling before to potentially spend all the mana, but I think just double Euro makes a lot of sense.
Picks up a Negate off of the front side. That ain't bad.
Yeah, especially if he's able to find a land here, he can actually negate a Teferi Time Raveler or Master of Time on the following turn. If he doesn't draw a land, though, I imagine this Euro is just going to get sent back to the hand, and then a crank for 6 is coming.
Uro escapes. Just 1 land left up, so won't have Negate up on this turn cycle, but does have a giant 6/6. See Hobbs attempting a Teferi Time Raveler. That's just going to work. That'll bounce the Euro.
Such a killer in this matchup, too. You know, like the Euro is just kind of mediocre, but the Teferi coming in, bouncing it, and then also just the static effect, locking down the ability of Wilderness Reclamation to do anything. And I feel like Alex was just really far ahead, and now with Teferi on the battlefield, half his hand just does nothing.
You know, that prison effect, that static effect on Teferi is so nice. I mean, if Midas could have picked up a Reclamation in place of one of these expansions, things could be a lot different already. As it is, these are going to be kind of tough main phase explosions. It's all that they're worth.
Yeah,
Here's
main phase explosion that kind of has to target the Teferi too.
And Hobbs is down on cards, sure, but has a significantly stronger battlefield presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, really good pickup for Mitas, though, as he cycles that Boon and picks up a Shark Typhoon and another copy on his draw step.
Yeah, it is a great way to get around the static effect of Teferi Time Raveler, to be able to provide a big flying blocker to potentially eat the Hydroid Krasis. I'm curious if he wants to just go ahead and blast the Time Raveler for 4, now that there's no mana up from Hobbs. But the problem is that that's a perfect situation where he spends a bunch of time and resources doing that, and then just gets absolutely clowned by the backup Teferi. And when so many cards in your deck cycle and draw another card and see more and more and more, it's so likely that you're just going to have to fight another Teferi on the next turn.
Now, we almost never see this happen, but do you have any thoughts on just hard casting Shark Typhoon here?
I am a very big proponent of hard casting Shark Typhoon. I think it's much less desirable against an opponent that has Teferi Time Raveler in their deck, specifically because they can just play another one and bounce it. But even that's like not that big of a deal. The problem is you're just spending 6 mana to do very little.
Well, the play is going to be Explosion on 1. Take care of that Time Raveler. Still no land drop this turn for Mitas.
Yeah, that's a play I do like. It gives Mitas the chance to negate on this turn, but he's being aggressive here. He's going to go ahead and play an expansion looking for specifically a land to be able to continue to hold up negate. That might come back to bite him here, especially if Hobbs is able to find another Teferi while the shields are down.
Growth Spiral did brick, shields are down. Hobbs picks up a Teferi, but not the 3-mana variety.
Yes, I would be looking to discard that. Looks like he's not going to go for the Jor-El this turn. Probably going to go for the Scavenging Ooze instead, so he can eat the opposing Euro, as well as get his Euro onto the battlefield. But we'll see what he chooses to do here.
Uro does escape for Hobbs. Shocks in a Temple Garden. He's going to loot with Teferi. Eyeing discarding the backup copy. Chooses to discard a land that he picked up there instead. Now Jor-El will show up. That allows him to still leave up Gust.
Yeah, and the Gust probably going to be targeting the Euro, but could be protection from an expansion explosion. The problem is that Alex is at 8. He never found a Wilderness Reclamation, and it looks like he's just falling too far behind because Hobbs just has not only pressure, but pressure that continually draws more cards and is caught back up on card advantage while applying that pressure.
The Storm's Wrath being considered by Mitas. It's okay.
This might be a Storm's Wrath plus expansion copy.
See, how much mana does he have here? Looks like he has more than enough to expand his Storm Wrath and then leave up another spell on top of that.
Yeah, he can go Storm's Wrath, copy it, and have negate backup, but does not have negate and gust backup. Will be slightly short of that, I believe, by 1 mana.
But Hobbs just with 2 mana facing it. So we see expansion on Storm's Wrath. Hobbs is going to attempt a gust on the Storm's Wrath. Now Mitas has enough mana, gets to fight over that with one of these spells.
And now you're gonna, yeah. The negate was the easy play. Mitas had the board wipe set up with the protection spell, easy sequence.
All right, everything takes 8.
Yeah, including the Teferi too. Storm's Wrath does not only hit creatures. It is significantly different than. Oh wow, what a draw!
Not a bad top deck for Jonathan Hobbs. Nissa, who shakes the world against an opponent on 8.
Opponent on 8 that is tapped out, so the Nissa is very unlikely to die next turn as well. Can untap a land, attack for a little bit. Might even be able. I know he can get back Euro. I wonder if he has enough mana to get back Euro and play a Teferi, but it's probably just going to look at playing Ooze and activating it a bunch.
So here's a float of the mana. Nissa's going to wake up this Triome. And Uro will escape.
I assume that in order to do all the things that he wants to do, like play Ooze and activate it, and play the Euro, he can't attack first because he has mana floating. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely what it looked like there.
There's a chance that there was a slight missed sequence there. I'm not going to look too far out of it because this is obviously there's an immense amount of pressure on both these players, and the rope does make you play a little bit faster than maybe you're used to.
And ultimately, the big thing here, Hobbs gets to cast all the spells that he wants, right? So he got to escape Uro, cast Scavenging Ooze, eat Midas's Uro, and now has all these permanents on the battlefield. The attack would have put Mitas to 5, sure, but Mitas has a lot of problems on the table, one way or the other.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, I was wrong because the way that he sequenced it, he actually played around Mystical Dispute. If he had sequenced it the other way, Mystical Dispute would have been able to counter the Euro for 1 mana. And with so many cards in hand, he's seen so much of his deck, I think that Hobbs just kind of assumed it was there, even though it wasn't.
Yeah. No, that definitely works. Cast your blue spells first.
All right, well, it looks like Mitas is trying to figure out how to play the rest of this game because he's extremely far behind. Last turn had a complete board wipe with the Storm's Wrath and the expansion on it. This turn, how does he get out of it? Does that start with an expansion explosion? One timeout's used. If this timeout, if the next timeout happens, that's just going to be end of turn for him. Got to be really careful.
Explodes the Ooze for 4. Now most of the mana is tapped. Still gets to gust the Uro.
Yeah, that's going to maybe keep him alive for 1 extra turn. It is really, really scary, though.
Hobbs is going to keep that one. He'll draw that Uro off the top. And now with 3 very good cards in hand, just going to consider the options on the sequencing here.
Yeah, it might not be worth it to just play a gigantic Hydroid Crisis. I mean, the Nissa's already threatening a lot of lethal. Maybe the Teferi is a slightly better play alongside the Euro.
Yeah, just like not using all your mana and drawing some extra cards can yield some reactive spells, which might be more beneficial than tapping out and having a fistful of cards.
Right.
See 2 lands rumble across, Mitas to 2.
I actually quite like doing the Krasis here instead of the Euro. Oh, it picks up a Teferi Time Raveler. That's going to be the nail in the coffin, folks. Holy moly.
Yeah, things just keep getting worse for Alex Mitas. Hydroid Krasis as a 4/4 and Teferi Time Raveler. Very problematic card for Team of Reclamation.
Well, the tick up versus the tick down is a tough spot here. I think the tick down makes the most sense on nothing to just try to draw one of those counter spells that you can play off the Triome. But the plus certainly has merit because it does force a larger expansion explosion to take care of the Teferi, or perhaps makes it so something like a second Storm's Wrath is unable to kill the Teferi.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of this calculus here for Hobbs is just Mitas has been through so many expansions already. I believe 3 of the 4 copies in the graveyard, right. And the mana equation is really uphill for Mitas, even if it was able to explode Teferi for 1.
Looks like we had a Shark Typhoon cycled for 0. That's desperation mode, and with his back against the wall, Alex really needs to find something to help contain this battlefield. But you're really seeing why the Bant ramp deck is so favored in the matchup. These Teferi Time Ravelers, when they come at the wrong time, it's just brutal.
Jonathan Hobbs emotes, nice.
Nice.
Like it when I win the game. A mold of 5 against a full 7. Hobbs is feeling good about that game 1.
Yeah, whenever you mold a 5 and win, especially in against one of the most popular decks in the format, even if it's a good matchup, it always feels good to get the win. You know, you feel like justified not only in your deck decision, but also you're just validated by your card choices and things of that nature. Like, it's just an all around great moment when you have to mulligan low like to 5 and you can still win in a matchup like this.
Jonathan Hobbs has played a lot of decks that are very similar to Bant Ramp. He's played a lot of these blue-green cards. I know that he's a very big fan of the flash strategies, and you see just how quickly he sideboarded here. He's played this matchup before.
Yeah, he's got a probably little sideboard guide that's just like in this, out that, GG, let's go, next game. And of course, these are open decklist tournaments, so that he does have perfect information about what his opponent does have.
3 of a kind. Hobbs is looking at triple Dovin's Veto in the opener. Lands on keeping that.
Yeah, I don't hate the keep because Dovin's Veto is so strong. However, you do always want something like a Growth Spiral or Euro or something like that in your opening 7.
Yeah, kind of the long and short of it is it's a 3 Veto, 3 land hand. Any hand that you keep with this deck, you're going to want to draw more lands. But this hand, you could be overpowered if you can't double spell. But he has drawn a 4th land, another island off the top, so this should be good at least for a few turns.
Yeah, and the vetoes are going to protect him from Wilderness Reclamation, or if that doesn't come down, then they're just going to be pretty solid for a while. Drawing lands is the thing that Hobbs really wanted to do, so seeing not only the temple, but the island come off the top over the last 2 turns is perfect.
And Mitas is now going to go for Reclamation with the 5th land on the battlefield. Has a Mystical Dispute, but nothing to do about this first Dovin's Veto.
Yeah, unfortunate for Mitas. He tried to protect his Wilderness Reclamation with that dispute, but unfortunately just not in the cards because Dovin's Veto cannot be countered.
Hobbs plays a temple, scries a temple to the top. It's been leaving up Dovin's Veto with a Mystical Dispute that is picked up. Going to be tough to get anything under this hand.
Yeah, and that's one of the strengths of Bant ramp in this matchup is Dovin's Veto. And the fact that he started with 3 of them, yeah, it might look a little awkward here and there, but really the story just comes down to whether or not he's able to draw lands. And he did. He's successfully has drawn 3 lands since his opener, and now is just completely in the driver's seat because the next 3 cards that matter from Mitas are just getting countered, no matter what.
Temple of Enlightenment scries Temple Garden to the bottom. That one doesn't scry. No thank you. Alex Mitas is going to crank Blast Zone up to 3, trying to preempt it to Fairy there. Cracks Fabled Passage. Draws Shark Typhoon. That's a pretty serious improvement on this hand of counterspells.
Yeah. So now we're just going to have basically a big Shark Typhoon versus small Shark Typhoon, and nary another spell will resolve.
Hobbs makes a 2/2 Shark, goes to his turn, plays land number 6, picks up a couple Planeswalkers, and this who shakes the world into Fairy Time Raveler. Before he gets to any of that, though, here comes Baby Shark.
This ain't Baby Shark. Oh yeah, no, the one attacking is Baby Shark. I was gonna say Alex the Shark is about to make Baby Shark. That's a Daddy Shark, but it's not a Grandpa Shark. That's like the 10+.
Baby Shark connects Alex Mitas to 16. Hobbs gonna think about whether he wants to get up to anything in the second main phase here.
I think it's a good idea to start applying pressure to the Reclamation deck. You can do that by going to Fairy this turn, and then you have Dispute and Veto backup. But instead, it looks like he's going to play it a little more safe. Going to go with a Krasis for 2 and hold up Veto, so that the next big spell from Mitas can't resolve.
I like the way that Hobbs is leveraging all these theoretically big spells. Makes this really small Shark, uses his mana, keeps cards flowing. Hydrate Krasis, shoves that instead of his more impactful spells, because it replaces itself whether it's countered or not. Midas makes a 5/5 Shark, but Hobbs' hand is stacked, and he's still leaving up Dovin's Veto this turn.
Yeah, it is completely stacked. He has an answer to the Shark with Teferi Time Raveler bounce. The next few turns are going to be pretty interesting to see how they navigate, because this is the sticky. This is the type of magic that I love. It's intricate. There's these factors that you have to consider, and there's so many decision trees, and every single decision has a pretty high impact on the game.
Pretty nice land number 7 for Hobbs. Midas just played a land and pass, as now we see Teferi Time Raveler attempted. Here's a negate that's going to meet Dovin's Veto. Mm-hmm. Actually, maybe not. Hobbs is maybe reconsidering because of the Blast Zone on the table.
Yeah, but he really needs to get rid of this 5/5 Shark. It is posing a serious problem, honestly.
Does lock in, fighting with Dovin's Veto. Now you're going to see Midas cast Mystical Dispute, targeting the Teferi. Now, Dispute can't catch that. And there's not 2 blue mana left open, so the other Veto will be fired off.
Yeah, it's got to go for the Veto if he wants it to Teferi to stick around, but this is going to work unless Midas is able to cycle the Triome into another Mystical Dispute, which I don't think would necessarily be a bad play, but instead he could just start cranking up the Blast Zone, try to get that up to 3, but I don't know. If he's going to cycle the Triome anyway, I might have cycled in response just to try to get lucky and hit another Mystical Dispute, because it looks like you're falling really far behind now.
Get that Shark out of there, says Teferi. 4 points of flyers rumbling across. You see a cycling of a Triome. Wilderness Reclamation picked up. That's interesting, as Midas falls to 12.
It would be a lot more interesting if the Teferi weren't there, but it does allow for the Blast Zone to get churned up to 3 pretty quickly. And
the Blast Zone is already on 3. He did spend an earlier turn doing that.
My apologies. My apologies.
And here is a Boon of the Wish Giver. Draws 4. Finds another Shark Typhoon. So, solid enough hand for Midas, but the question is really how much time he has left, as you see a Nissa who shakes the world hovering over the battlefield for Hobbs.
Yeah, and he has a negate drawn. Can't cast it, though, because of Teferi, and even if he did was able to cast it, would have just got completely blasted by 1 Mystical Dispute.
Nissa's looking to wake up a land. This is over half of Midas's life total. Take 7, thank you.
Yeah, now even if he's able to get the Teferi off the battlefield, I think the damage is already done. The the static effect, the bounce effect, all of it combined with the pressure of these small ball sharks and Hydrocrasis, and now the Nisu shakes the world. And I don't think that there's really a great out for Alex here. He's just in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either. We see a cycle to try on an end step. Mitas is going to get as many looks as he can. As Shark Typhoon and commence the end game.
Well, I guess if the Blast Zone's already on 3, he can play Wilderness Reclamation. He can crack the Blast Zone, and then no, that would have been so cool.
You see a cast of the big Shark Typhoon. Mystical Dispute's going to meet that, and Hobbs has another copy, even if Mitas pays.
Yeah, the other copy, if he pays, is not as relevant as just tapping his 3 lands here and then being left with 1 mana with a Shark Typhoon. Just doesn't really do anything. Luckily, though, the Reclamation does get to land through the Mystical Dispute. Oh, it costs... Oh, I forgot the land tap for 2. Oh,
yep,
wow.
And that's going to wrap it up. Jonathan Hobbs, a 2-0 win over Alex Mitas. After that mold of 5